Alrighty. Hello everyone, I'm your boss, Joe Boss, and welcome to another Daily Plan. Let's get this show on the road. And yeah, Trent, the vertical stream is still getting set up. Wasn't able to get it set up in time for today's stream, sadly. Also, I was doing some technical tests. The vertical stream was, the presentation isn't quite there quite yet, frankly. I was thinking about doing something along the lines here in TradingView of, I can have a second copy of TradingView open on another window and it will duplicate all my motions and drawings and commentary. So if I were to switch to another chart over here like the S&P or the DAX or Aussie dollar, right? If I were to go to any of these assets, I'd have it mirrored on another stream in a vertical format. And it's not going as expected. It's not updating the way I would like it to. So we'll still do the vertical streams. It's just I have to find probably a more rigorous setup, right? I need to probably do what's called framing. And that is I have to create like, if I have Epic Pen on, right? Alright, looks like I do have Epic Pen on. Let's wait for that thing to load on up. Hey, there's the Epic Pen. Framing is something along the lines of making sure this spot on the screen is where all the focus is. So then when I do a vertical stream setup, the people who are still watching on the vertical stream can see all the commentary that's being written out and can still see all the drawings that I'm doing on the chart, right? So that's what I've come to realize what I have to do. And just to do that aptly, I have to set up a few scenes properly. And I haven't had the time literally between now and when we talked about doing vertical streams to actually get that all set up. But yeah, vertical streams are going to be coming, so then we can clip that and make some shorter form highlight content on top of the widescreen highlight clips that are, 5 to 20 minutes long. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to be clipping yesterday's stream quite a bit. Yesterday's stream was quite good. A lot of good commentary in that stream. There'll be some good commentary in this stream though, but it'll be way more chill. It's going to be a lot more interactive. You guys are going to be able to actually give me chart requests and I'll be going over them. Ask me for things about expectations for the up and coming week. You can see we're more or less going in line with this monthly expectation here. That is kind of nuts. I am very, very happy to see euro dollar falling through, right? Because now these positions are doing well again. I was like, oh, this is upsetting. Oh no. And to see this follow through, it's like, oh, okay. Very nice. Very, very nice. And then on the CAD side, yeah, the expectations are more or less in line. Actually, on the euro dollar, I was looking at the trade group for this expectation that we set up in yesterday's stream. Get this, when we were doing the analysis on the stream and we were looking at this in the trading group, we were looking at this time of day report indicator. We were saying, oh, okay, so sometime in the next 2 to 4 hours, we should be getting the low for the day here. And that's when I drew this expectation for a positive move higher. And get this, if I copy this expectation and move it over to the close 2 bars out into the future. 1, 2. Oh man, off by just a couple of hours there. Yeah, that would have been a much better looking expectation. But, you know, that's why having indicators that can help you with timing things day to day can be especially helpful. And just, you know, I didn't even make this indicator. However, I'm thinking about making something similar on my own, using data from the timing dots here. So we'll see how that goes. I have a lot of projects on my plate. In fact, I ended up doing quite a bit of research on the indicator, if you guys know, and a lot of you guys know, because the 2 most popular streams I've had over the last month are the 2 PineScript programming hour streams, and tomorrow we're having another one. And I actually rewrote and implemented some new code into the trend cycle indicator, and I rewrote a bunch of its guts over the last like 48 hours, specifically because I found out, oh wow, TradingView actually has no proper centered moving average indicator out there. So instead of using the double moving average like it is right now, when you see the trend cycle indicator, it's not on the chart right now because I kind of broke it. I broke it for the stream. It's kind of, you know, in a bit of a limbo state. After the stream, I'm going to be working on it a bit more. But the idea is we're going to still be publishing that indicator in tomorrow's stream. So it's going to be the first PineScript programming hour where we're going to be going over how to write an indicator description, how to put pictures in it, what do you do to make sure that the description looks good, how do you proofread it, all that kind of stuff. And then maybe look at some examples of how other people publish their indicators and what kind of information should be in a good indicator's description. I know other people have done this too, but it's like, yeah, you know, there's not too many guys out there doing streams of them actually publishing indicators, right? So it'll be very, very, very cool to see. I won't last long. I gotta sleep here soonish. Yeah, man. Honestly, me too. I am pretty darn tired. I'm ready to take a nap after the stream. It's become more or less a habit of mine now at this point. Take a little nap after the stream, because I end up spending a few hours up before the stream doing trade research. Thankfully, not too much has gone down, but in the last 30 minutes or so, we've had quite a few geopolitical happenings occur. And I've been posting those into the geopolitics channel, right? White House is looking at plans for another second round of mass layoffs. And we also have this bit of commentary here: Israel threatens to annex lands in Gaza unless hostages are freed. So there's some more geopolitical stuff. But if you're more interested in the macroeconomic outlook for the week ahead, and as we get into this next week, we're going to start looking at people setting expectations for the first half of April. We'll be getting a lot of those outlooks released here over the next 48 hours. So keep an eye out on this Outlooks channel. And if you want to know how to get access to that Discord, just go to the pinned links and the comments and all that to the Plan the Profit Discord here. You'll find it in wap.com/plantheprofit. Just go here, click on that, and hit the join button. And that'll bring you through. And if you're interested in the indicators that you see here on stream, you can go ahead and try them out for 10 days for free. Alrighty. Good stuff. Now let me make sure I got an eye on the WAP chat. Everything looks cool. Looks like everything's all good on the Twitch side of things. All's good on the Kick side of things. We are rocking and a roll. Yeah, man. Yesterday's stream was pretty damn popular. The trading streams and the programming streams The more I do them, the more people are watching them, the more people are tuning in. It's very, very encouraging to see the analytics build up over the last 3 weeks more seriously. We'll kind of do a recap maybe over the last month and see how things are going. We'll see if I end up doing that or not. But so far, first month of coming back off hiatus for a while here from streaming, and things are moving pretty good. I'll turn down the music a little bit more just so it doesn't overwhelm my voice, and it's background music, right? Okay. So let's get into things for week ahead. The car, hello, I've been practicing ways best to use the probability pivots. Oh, actually, I was thinking for this stream, because we're looking at week ahead stuff, to check out the probability pivots. So, you know, we can check them out for euro dollar. Oh, wow, that is a pretty wide range. It seems like there's a bit more of a bullish skew next week here on euro dollar. Yeah. Quite a bit of uncertainty, slightly bullish skew, it seems, relative to where we are right now. Let's turn on the strategy dashboard. I think I have the range bias turned on. Yeah, just the ranges. Okay. And this is saying for next week, down here, that's what all this data is. Next week, pretty good. It seems like the bullish range bias has, pretty good. And also the bearish range bias both have pretty good take profit probabilities. But these stop loss odds, the range bearish setup, which if we go here, pivot point bias, range bearish, this particular setup hits its stop loss 13% of the time. And we can duplicate it on the chart by, we know when you have a bearish bias, what you want to do is see, oh, where do I get stopped out when we make a new significant high past the stop loss level? And there you go, 13.64%. And then you look at the dashboard, 13.64% right here at where it says stop loss. I think the chat is covering it up. Yeah, I think the chat is covering it up. One sec, let me just hide it for one moment so we can illustrate a point. Yeah, there we go. And I'll turn the chat back on for the next transition. So yeah, here in the bottom left-hand corner of the stream, you can see all these different statistics for overshooting a target, hitting the exit, and generally speaking, what a lot of guys will do is they'll look at all of the probabilities bin by bin and check, oh, what's the odds that we get our top here, and what are the odds, now that I've changed the data source to low, what are the odds we get our low down here, right? And so instead of having to do that constantly, flip through all these data sources, you know, if you want to see exactly how the data is laid out, the seasonal distribution of data relative to the pivots, this is how you do it to see the actual hard data. But you can always just look at the strategy dashboard and see like, oh, this strategy hits a stop loss only 13% of the time. That seems pretty good. And that's about half as frequently as the bullish bias does. So, however, considering that we're going to be opening closer down here, let's go ahead and check out the range bullish bias, which is just the bias flipped around. Yeah, and you can see, let's look at the low odds real quick. And that should match our entry odds, so it should say 22.73 in here. Yeah, 22.73. So about a quarter of the time, the low for the week, given this particular bias shows up around here. And the probability weighted pivot indicates maybe somewhere above 108 is the appropriate spot. And check that out. The probability weighted pivot, given this bias, is right here for where the lows come in on the week. And we're hitting that. Well, we've been hitting that. But we're going to go ahead and go back to unbiased so I can see the full layout. Let's see. I'm seeing a good place to buy next quarter and month would be around 105, 106. That is quite a bearish outlook there, if I would say so myself. Quite the bearish outlook indeed. But yeah, it seems like most of the lows next week come in around here above S1. Going past S1 gets a little bit more dicey, again using seasonal data here. And you can see, hey, this is where the lows mostly come in for this week, given the last 21-ish years of data that we have. And that's the probability weighted pivot right there, and look at where the lows came in this week on Eurodollar. I believe we can do the same thing for the highs and just do a quick review, see how well the seasonal odds. Yeah, check that out. The largest probability spot right here between R0.5 and R1, that's where we got our high roughly. However, there was definitely this is what was, causing me some concern, because when you see these stronger odds here and the probability weighted pivot way up there, I'm like, things aren't looking so hot. But then we got German stimulus coming through, and we also had some people pulling out. There was all these positive flows into European equities, and then there were all these negative flows out of European real estate. So quite a reversal there, quite a reversal. Anyways, let's go ahead and check out a few more assets here. Now is a good time to set up recommendations. What do you guys want me to check out for the week ahead? In the meantime, we'll go ahead and try and cover the major economic events. So next week, closer to the end of the week, I believe, we have flash PMIs coming out, which are going to be a big deal, because that'll give us an indication of really the flash PMI surveys track inflation, employment, and growth of many countries very closely. So the flash PMIs tend to be market moving news events. So I'm going to keep an eye on how those PMIs end up moving markets closer towards the end of the week. And that could end up, if they turn out to be very good numbers for the rest of the world, I probably don't want to be long dollar going into those flash PMIs unless they disappoint. If those flash PMIs disappoint towards the end of the week, it's not going to be so good. Let's see here. If I recall, if I go to the stream schedule here, let's go ahead and check this out. Yeah, on the 24th here, we're getting some flash PMI, so right at the beginning of the week. I also think we're getting, are those actually the European flash PMIs, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, we're getting the European flash PMIs. French, German, UK, and US flash PMIs are all coming out on the 24th, so it's not end of the week. So again, depending on how well that comes out, if the flash PMIs are coming out well, and I'm pretty certain that the German PMI surveys will likely come out well. I'd be surprised if they didn't, given all the stimulus stuff that we got. And then we'll have to see how well the US PMIs hold up. If they stay in positive territory. But I net would rather, going into the flash PMIs, not want to be in the US dollar. simply based on my expectation that I think those flash PMIs are going to be coming in more risk on. So let's go ahead and, for the sake of things, actually check out crypto real quick, because crypto might benefit from those flash PMIs next week. Oh wow, yeah, next week there's not a whole lot of upside usually. Again, I think we only have about like 13-14 years of data here, so there's not that much data. Oh, we got another spammer there over on Kick. How sad. How sad. Another spammer. Alrighty. Go ahead and ban him. Ban. Get out of here. Get out of here. Again, building up that spam list. Making sure the chats are clean. Alright, everything's going pretty smoothly so far for these streams. We can also check out how low Bitcoin can go. Again, this is just given seasonal data. Yeah, seems more range boundy next week. It seems to be the historical performance for next week on Bitcoin, more or less. Seems a bit more range boundy. Actually, here's a good thing we can check out. Let's go ahead and see, given this top for the day, or the week rather, let's go ahead and bump this up to, let's say, 2%. Ooh, yeah, quite a few dots way down here. So given a top for the week here on Bitcoin, I wouldn't be surprised to see us do something along these lines here going into the end of the week. So let's set that to red and timestamp our expectations so then we can keep track of them over time. And this is 06/26. Timestamp our expectations. Alrighty. So yeah, that's more or less an end of week expectation on Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and check out a few more charts. Again, now's the time to go ahead and ask me to review stuff. So let's see here. We just covered, we can go ahead and set this back to the correct percent bounds for FX. Let's see here. We can't use timing dots for next week. That's a current week sort of indicator. Let's see here. What else can we do? Any useful information here? Maybe on the daily boss bands. Let's go ahead and hide all this information. Pretty range bound. This looks like an edge-to-edge situation. So looking at this, I certainly wouldn't be surprised to see further continuation to the upside. Let's go ahead and timestamp that. We're getting right into trading expectations, guys, right? This is a more chart-heavy focused stream for sure. Let's go ahead. Oh, look at that. Isn't that so convenient? Right where I place the upside expectation is right where we have a peak in our probability distribution for next week. How convenient. Also, this thing here that says Parliament is back. The Canadian Parliament is currently prorogued until March, I believe, 23rd, 25th. And Mark Carney, I believe he's going to, it's said, it was rumored, some inside sources said he was going to announce a snap election in Canada. to occur on April 28th. So we could very well, once we have confirmation, have to focus a lot on some Canadian politics to see how that develops. And I was also kind of surprised. I had to update my expectations. Turns out, Bolivar is less likely to be someone who is cooperative with the Trump administration or able to work with the Trump administration. Trump actually came out and said he would prefer the Liberals win, Mark Carney win the election because he thinks he can work with Carney better than the conservative leader, Bolivar. So, you know, it's not looking great for Bolivar. Maybe he'll win. But we'll have to see how the next about month or two of Canadian politics unfolds. So there's a lot more political risk going forward to watch out for on the Canadian assets side of things. So anyone looking at USD CAD, start checking up on news, because there's things that are going to drop more likely than not that aren't going to be on your economic calendar. So, you know, just make sure you have your Bloomberg and your Reuters subscriptions paid up. UC high for the day. Oh, let's check that out. Let's go ahead and check it out. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, the high for the day is probably going to come in a little bit higher here. The next peak in the distribution here is right there. So somewhere around here, yeah. And also we can probably use the timing dots in this scenario here to help us with our analysis. Let's go ahead and adjust the settings here, so then we can do our analysis. Yeah, you know, I wouldn't be surprised to see us move into this cluster of dots into the end of day, which lines up with this blip here in our distribution. So while it is pretty darn likely that we get the top for the day in right here, right now, there's a lot of dots here on the current bar. The top for the day, there is a decent chance that the top of the day could be in, but the probability, in my view, isn't totally discounted. We could just see some positive drift into end of day here. So yeah, we might end up hitting this weekly closing expectation. We might end up closing the week close to this expectation here. And I'd say net, the expectations that I've set over the last week have been okay. Just okay. No terribly egregious mistakes. I mean, outside of maybe what I pulled up here on the Aussie, right? Which was down and then up, and we had literally the exact opposite thing occur. But this was for the weekly expectation, and then this was for the monthly expectation for us to close way down here. So looks like we're going to match the monthly expectation. We can also check this out here. So given the current high for the month, where do following lows for the month occur? Let's go ahead and increase that a bit more, because that's kind of a small box. Let's increase that a bit more. Let's try 3.5. Wow, yeah, not that much data. Not that much data. The only dots I see are pretty much right there that seem even remotely reasonable. But when you only have literally like a handful of dots, like 2 or 3 dots like this, you want to not commit super heavily, right? It's very nice when you have a lot of data and a lot of dots that show, okay, you know, this is something that we can look at some historical patterns and see some similar moves, right, compared to history. but it looks like we don't have that much history at the moment for this type of specific move at the top of the month coming in right here. However, at least on the Aussie side of things, we can at least look at the closing odds for the month, the closing distribution, and the peak of the distribution is right here, highlighted in blue. There is also this area right there. And I'll move the chart over to the left some so the chat isn't in the way. Let's see here. So yeah, hopefully that's good for you, Ari, on dollar CAD. It's probably gonna keep on going, in my opinion, looking at the stats. And then here, yeah, it'll probably match this expectation. Again, just looking at the odds. This is what I would call setting nominal expectations. And by nominal, I mean you're just looking at the data, you're just looking at the indicators, you're just looking at the statistics, you know, for however much these statistics provide and help in assisting our analysis. The nominal trade is simply to trade in the direction with the highest probabilities, given all the historical data and statistics that we have available to us through these indicators. That's what I consider the nominal trade. And then you can go ahead and do additional trade research, geopolitics, outlooks, right? And develop a more refined view of, okay, we have this economic event coming on this trading day, and I'm expecting it to come out positively or negatively, and we can tune our expectations from there. So let's go ahead and keep going. Yep. Everything seems to be so far so good. Oh yeah, that's right. I have to leave the WAP stream, so then we have a good, fat, big picture view on the WAP stream. That's right. Alrighty. Oh, excuse me. Let's go ahead and check out S&P. Yeah, you do not get lows this far down. Again, this is mostly due to growth expectations in the US getting pulled back significantly. A lot of people are, I watched a bunch of YouTube videos over the last 24 hours of people talking about, I'm just rubbing my eyes here going like, oh dude, people are putting way too much weight on just over analyzing these few candles. Way too much emphasis on just looking at these few candles. Look, for all we know, the thing's going to stay around these prices going into the beginning of next month. And actually, there's a few smart analysts that I follow on X, on Twitter, who effectively have said the exact same thing. Oh, it says YouTube's not receiving as much data. That's weird. Tell me if you guys are experiencing buffering or if the stream is hitching at all. Because on my end, it still shows me uploading at all the correct bit rates for all the streams. Whoa, yeah, and the analytics page here is doing some funky stuff right now. It's like showing, oh, there's 5 concurrent viewers. Oh, there's only 1 concurrent viewer. If you guys are here in the chat, let me know, because there's some weird stuff going on with YouTube analytics today on the stream. And again, if you're watching over there on WAP, say hi. If you're watching over there on Kick or Twitch, also say hi. We'll go ahead and look at charts you guys want me to check out. And we'll kind of discuss things for a little bit here as we get the stream going. Looking at next week's odds, it looks like about 50% of the time, the low for next week comes in between S1 and central pivot. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a move up going into the beginning of next week, sometime over the next like 36, 24, like in the first couple of trading days. Wow. I would be bullish. I want to be bullish next week. These are pretty high odds. These are pretty strong seasonal odds for the S&P. We definitely want to timestamp that. See if that expectation gets hit. Let's go ahead and check out maybe a few more things. Why don't we? Let's go ahead and check out the closing odds for next week. So probably a little bit of down into the open. Oh, wow. Closes are also particularly bullish. So maybe a bit on the upside. Probably a quote-unquote double top next week. That'll be kind of hilarious. People say, oh, you know, we had this pullback and now we're retesting this high, and then another pullback, creating a higher low, and then going into the month ahead, people have much more bullish expectations, and then you get rug pulled a little bit, going back to like this low. You can have all sorts of weird things happen. Again, it really just depends on what kind of data we end up getting. So let's go ahead and timestamp this one too of 640. So this would be kind of my nominal expectation. That's how I would put it. This is the nominal expectation, given the data, given these indicators, right? And again, also given the current price. So depending on where we actually close today over the next 8 hours, these pivots will move, they'll repaint, they're supposed to, and we can adjust these drawings based on where we see the pivots finally land at the close of today. Oh, it stuttered once, but it's all good now. Nice to see that, Ari. Nice to see that. Ah, man. What a chill stream we got going on here. Anything else we can check out? I mean, we do have the spring statement coming out for the pound here. Man, pretty volatile week ahead here for the pound. Let's check out the high odds here. How high does this thing usually go? I mean, there's probably got to be, yeah, I was about to say there's probably got to be some odds here based on looking at those closing odds. So pretty good odds, about 50%, a little more than 50% of the time. The top next week is between R0.5 and R1.5. And if we look at the lows for next week, do we also have a similar situation where most of the lows are like, wow, yeah. So we could probably see like a bit of a drift down, maybe, going into PMIs, and then a rebound. So let's go ahead and set that as our expectation for the week ahead. Yeah, man, you can do trade plans for the week ahead really, really quick when you have access to decent tools, right? These are by no means like the most complicated and sophisticated tools that were ever built, but you know what? I've been trading this particular indicator, the probability pivots, for, oh man, it's been about 5 years now that I've been trading with this indicator, and I've done pretty well. Just trading normal pivot points, I never found great success just trading regular pivot points. It was once I finally had some basic statistics, right? This is just using seasonal data. However, you can also use non-seasonal data if you really want, right? This is all the data. So if we give that a moment to load, It'll take a little while, but we can load the non-seasonal distribution. And look, yeah, most of the lows, given any week, the low usually for the week comes in between S0.5 and S1. However, with seasonal data turned on, it's looking at, okay, how has the next week or the current week performed over all of the years we have data available for. And usually we have about 20 years of data here on these FX charts, which I think is a reasonable number of samples here. There is some risk of drawdown, but here's something to keep in mind. This S1.5 pivot is actually the stop loss for the standard, for the range bullish bias. And I think it's like 9% odds. No, it's about 12%. Yeah. 13.64% odds of getting stopped out sometime over. Actually, if we turn on the dashboard here real quick, I can actually pull up the exact number of samples we have. Wow, those were some pretty strong odds there. So over the last 22 years of data that we have, a lot of lows next week kind of come in pretty close to this S0.5 level here, with some risk of more serious drawdown. So let's kind of back that up a bit. All right, looking good. So we'll have to see how the spring statement goes. Now, again, given these nominal probabilities, these probabilities don't have any information about the spring statement. And right now, things are not looking good. Effectively, the spring statement, it's supposed to bring a bunch of relief, especially for homeowners, for rent, and energy. See you in a bit, Ari. Thank you for hopping in, my man. Absolutely appreciate it. So we'll have to see how big that stimulus is for consumers. Because if it can help with setting higher growth expectations in the UK, marginally, materially higher growth expectations, then yeah, I would see the pound getting stronger, especially also if those flash PMIs do get weaker on the US side of things going into the week ahead. Because we're also getting the UK flash PMIs, and if those do slightly better than expected, and the US flash PMIs effectively come in as expected, which is a little worse than the prior numbers, then yeah, sure. Pound could come down a little bit, and then once those flash PMIs actually release, see a rebound. Definitely in the cards. Definitely in the cards. So let's go ahead and unbias these things so I can just have all my pivots back. Let's see here. What else can we check out? How about the ranges? Let's go ahead and check out what the ranges say. Well, there's a peak in our distribution right there. And here's another peak in our distribution right up there. So this is definitely a more bullish setup. So using seasonal probabilities from the pivots to set some kind of expectation, some of the macroeconomic information, right, flash PMIs, and some geopolitical information in the UK, the spring statement, to set some expectations, we are generally saying, okay, here are the assumptions that we are setting going into the following trading week. And these expectations make sense, at least to me, given that information and given the statistics from these indicators. Again, I'm sure people can find ways to nitpick stuff or come up with other discretionary macro themes or whatnot, or who knows, maybe some big surprise comes through, or, you know, we get a huge volatile spike for whatever reason. Let's say flash UK PMI surprise to the downside for whatever reason. That's gonna really bump up the autocorrelation here. It's you just don't want to see the negative momentum here build up too much, because I mean, we did likely hit the top for the month here on the pound. I'd be surprised if we did make a higher high. And it's going to depend on the spring statement, right? Not every single time are we going to be trading a week with fiscal policy right around the corner. But yeah, we are getting an update. Also, there was something else. There was another country, I believe. Oh, it's Australia. That's right. We have to go back to Australia. We are getting... The Treasurer of Australia came out and said that they're going to be presenting the Australian government's fiscal budget. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see here. Economics. Yeah, next week's federal budget. Westpac did a video on it. So yeah, I don't recall exactly what day it's happening on right off the top of my head, but depending on... Actually, I might be confusing the information from the budget in Australia with the budget in the UK. I could be mistaken. All that stuff I said about, you know, supporting rents, right? Well, there is one more thing that the Australians have going for them, other than their own fiscal policy, and that is China's fiscal policy. Australia and China are very closely connected economically, so and a lot of people who don't want to get direct exposure to Chinese assets will try and use Australian assets to get their exposure. So if we get any more serious updates on China's stimulus measures and how stimulatory they may be in order to achieve their 5% year-over-year GDP growth target that they just set, alongside with this fiscal stimulus, if it has good growth expectations for Australia, just like for the pound, we could see this thing close a bit higher than what was expected here in this era. So maybe we end up with a bounce. So let's go ahead. How about we check out the odds here? Yeah, so I'd be concerned if the Australian dollar went past that S1 pivot. Odds get very thin and very small, and they tail out past that S1. You can see 4.5, 4.5, 9, 4.5 versus 27 and 18 up here. So generally speaking, given the seasonal data, higher odds of finding the low here for the week between central pivot S1. Lower odds here, but this is like catching a falling knife. So past S1, I'd be concerned about sharp volatile moves to the downside. So let's say we have something like this. If the US flash PMIs do come out sour, oh wow, that is pretty darn bullish, man. I might end up, that's about 100 pips. I might end up wanting to take this next week. I'm very, very glad I looked at this. 0653. So yeah, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the Aussie going into the first 36 hours of trading next week, because I would like, given, again, these parameters here, just of, okay, we're just looking at the stats, not going too deep on the macro stuff, on the geopolitical stuff, that's going to be things more or less covered over the weekend and later in the day today here on Friday, where we can further refine those expectations in the Discord, in the research channels in Discord, and in the trading channels in Discord again. And the point of being in a trading community is to get research done with other traders. We'll go ahead and refine these expectations as we share and cover more of the data here. But just looking at the data, at these statistics from these indicators, I feel pretty good about setting this as an expectation. Wow, so that would be up here. Wow. Yeah, so maybe a bit more of a dip somewhere in this like 25-ish pip range, right? Somewhere at one of these two peaks, find the low, and then up to here potentially. And pretty strong odds of finding the top up there seasonally for next week. And given the information that we know so far about the stimulus, there could be more upside surprises. It's just going to mostly depend on whether or not those flash PMIs, if the tariff growth scare that we've got, that's come, and a lot of these US equity indices over the last month hit the US PMIs super hard. So we'll need to see how hard those flash PMIs get hit. And if they do get hit really hard, well, I wouldn't be surprised to see a rebound here on something like the Aussie dollar next week. Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep this stream then pretty short. Short and sweet. We went ahead and did a bunch of trade plans for a bunch of assets, a reasonable number of assets, right? I didn't go too deep into setting expectations for, the month ahead, right? We'll be doing month ahead expectations next week as we get closer and closer to the end of March. So April expectations. And we'll also be getting monthly research sent out from all the big trading institutions. So we'll be getting analysis on all the major events for the month ahead over the next week. That'll be very enlightening to follow up and read on. I'm kind of curious, is New Zealand in the same sort of bucket next week as far as the probability pivots are concerned? Let's go ahead, look at the low data, switch to a 12-hour so we load as much historical data as possible. Wow, those are quite bullish continuation odds there. Looks like New Zealand has a bit more ways to go lower. So maybe a sharper fall going into the flash PMIs. Yeah, nothing's wrong with setting expectations. Even if you're wrong in your expectations, it's important to understand the assumptions behind them so then you can learn from them over time. And then you can more or less judge, like, okay, here's my baseline expectation. I need to watch things to see how they develop and if we actually realize the things that I'm anticipating, to see if these expectations actually get met. Yeah, net on the Kiwi side of things, looking pretty similar to the Aussie, but with a bit less certainty here. Looks like Aussie would move more anyways. Let's go ahead, try this out. Yeah, let's go ahead and adjust these a little bit further down, probably hitting that peak in the distribution and then hitting that peak here. So lower high, kind of same situation with the S&P where we're saying double top, right? I mean, S&P probably wouldn't move so positively next week, right? If those flash PMIs did come out negative. So I'm more skeptical of this nominal expectation, of setting expectations just based on the odds for next week on the S&P, given these indicators data, considering, you know, a bit more information than just what's on the chart. So I'm a bit more skeptical about the S&P here, but we'll go ahead and keep our options open. And it's good to have some baseline expectations based on, you know, some stats, right? But then also be able to say, oh, well, realistically, there are these other things that we need to take into consideration, and we might need to diminish the amount of weight we actually put on at least the expectations set on this asset until we see how the data actually realizes itself, especially those flash PMIs. Alrighty. With that all said and done, I'll go ahead and end the stream here. Go ahead and catch my nap. And then hang out with a few guys later today, get some more work done, and do a little bit of prep work for the PineScript programming hour stream tomorrow. So I hope you all enjoyed. We definitely had a more trading focused stream today, at least on the trade plan side of things. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in a bit.